Let's be honest, folks. Islands of Adventure is an elite theme park. In fact, it may even be the best theme park I've ever been to personally. However, nobody is perfect, ladies and gentlemen, and Islands of Adventure is no exception to that rule. In fact, there is one glaringly obvious problem that Islands of Adventure currently has that has only gotten worse over the years that needs to be addressed. Now you may be asking yourself, well, what is this problem? I mean, you just said it yourself, Islands of Adventure is one of the best theme parks out there. I mean, how could it have an issue that's so massive, so colossal that, one, it's worth talking about here today, and two, could actually make a sizable difference at the park if it were to be fixed? Well, let me break it down for you. Islands of Adventure can be said to have a near perfect ride lineup with a roller coaster collection that is next to none, with perhaps the best roller coaster in the world in Velocicoaster in the park. Perhaps the greatest water ride collection ever assembled in a single theme park. The best simulator ride ever created in the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. Fantastic food quality for a theme park, that is. I mean, with the best theme park restaurant in the world as voted on by other people, not me. Butterbeer, and without a doubt, the best theme park burger in the world, bar none. With fantastic theming and an unbelievable original soundtrack to boot, it sure sounds like Islands of Adventure has all the bases covered and then some. But there's something missing that you might associate with the typical theme park that I didn't mention. That being shows, live entertainment. These are things that Islands of Adventure is lacking in. Yes, the thumbnail was not subtle, folks. It shows. And the sad part is, for Islands of Adventure, it didn't used to always be this way. The park opened with the 8th Voyage of Sinbad and Poseidon's Fury, which I know, yes, is a walkthrough attraction, but it effectively serves the same purpose as a sit-down show. It even opened with a show in the Toon Lagoon Theater. Yes, that big building that you never see anybody go into because nothing's ever happening there. It's been abandoned for the better part of a decade. They used to have shows that would rotate in and out of there after that opening day show closed after only a year because it was so unpopular. But to my knowledge, the last show that was in there was Nitro Circus, and that was roughly about 10 years ago that last showed on a regular basis. And you may be wondering, well, why did Universal get rid of all the shows at Islands of Adventure? Well, the reason being is that Universal has conducted a crusade against shows over the last decade or so. You see, Universal Studios Florida and Universal Studios Hollywood were pretty much built on the back of shows. They were the backbone of those parks for a long time. I mean, almost half of the attractions in these parks would be traditional sit-down live-action shows. And Universal, to their credit, wisely has eliminated a lot of these shows and replaced them with rides in their stead. I mean, just looking at Universal Studios Florida, they closed Beetlejuice Graveyard Review, Fear Factor Live, Disaster, which yes I know is a ride, but basically half the experience was a show, Twister Ride It Out, which despite ride being in the name, was basically just a special effects show, Shrek 4D, and A Day in the Life of Barney, which was replaced by a DreamWorks show, which has since then closed. Universal killed so many shows just in Universal Studios Florida, it could be considered a genocide. And given the overabundance of shows in these parks, it made perfect sense to make this change at those two parks. The only problem is that crusade bled its way into Islands of Adventure, which did not have many shows to begin with. And now, with the closing of Poseidon's Fury last year, Islands of Adventure has no sit-down shows whatsoever. And you may be saying, shows? Really? That's the big hole in Islands of Adventure's armor? And listen, a few years ago, I'd be right there with you. I wasn't a big believer in shows. I didn't think that they played that vital of a part in the theme park experience. But over the past few years, I've had an epiphany, folks. Shows are crucial to making a complete theme park experience. Now, this is not to say that Islands of Adventure has no shows. They have 4, which might sound like a lot, but let's break it down. One of those shows is the nighttime show on Hogwarts Castle, which is great and all, but nighttime shows do serve a different purpose than daytime shows. Really, the main goal of nighttime shows is to keep people in the park until close. Keep them in there as long as possible. The longer they're in the park, the more money they're going to spend. That's the bottom line. So that's doing its part, but daytime shows serve a completely different purpose. And in that category, Islands Adventure is severely hurting, as they only have 3, and all 3 of them are what I would deem streetmosphere shows, meaning that they happen on the side of the main pathway in the park, allowing guests to show up after the show starts, leave before it's over, or just straight up walk right past it. Now, 2 of these shows you might be fairly familiar with, as they do take place in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, that being the Frog Choir and the Tri-Wizard Spirit Rally. The one you'd be forgiven for not knowing even existed is the Oh the Stories You'll Hear show in Seuss Landing. This show for a long time took place in a quiet little corner in Seuss Landing off the main path, so many people just never even knew the show was even going on. Now it happens right on the side of the path, so it's become a little more well known in recent years. But the bottom line is, folks, that these streetmosphere shows don't do enough to satiate the need that traditional shows fill. Now, to be fair, technically speaking, there is one sit-down show at Islands of Adventure. However, it only happens seasonally, and that's the How the Grinch Stole Christmas show, which happens during the Grinchmas event during the Christmas time of the year. And let me tell you, this show is very popular. It will have lines forming well before showtime outside of the entrance, proving my point that Islands of Adventure guests are yearning for sit-down shows, meaning that Islands of Adventure really needs a permanent, year-round sit-down show, at least one, if not a couple of them, to fill this gap that the park currently has. So you know what? Enough beating around the bush. Let's break down why shows are important and why Islands of Adventure needs them. For one, and this is a point that I have maintained even when I wasn't a big believer in shows, and that's the fact that they are people eaters. Not of the purple variety, but of the kind that takes people out of the park for a significant amount of time. You see, your average sit-down show lasts between 20 and 30 minutes. And if you're a show that has a pre-show, like Born, you can be 45-minute long experience. Compare this to the Streetmosphere shows currently at Islands Adventure that only last 10 minutes. And most people don't even stay for the whole duration. With these Streetmosphere shows, there's no commitment. You can walk up late, you can leave early, you don't even have to stop at all if you don't want to. However, with a sit-down show, you have to show up probably about 5 minutes before showtime at least to grab a seat. Maybe if it's a popular show, you actually have to wait in line before you get into the show. And though you could leave early if you wanted to, it's much more of a hassle to do so. So what these shows end up doing, because they're taking guests out of the rest of the park for such a substantial period of time, is they relieve the crowding everywhere else. The pathways are going to be clearer. And most importantly, the lines at all the rides are going to be shorter, because there's going to be less people waiting in those lines because they're going to be stuck watching a show. Making this perhaps the best part about adding a show to your park, because even if you're one of those people who says, I don't really like watching shows, I don't want to waste my time doing that, and I just want to ride the rides and stick to that, I completely get it, I understand where you're coming from. But the great thing is that by them adding a show, it actually benefits you, because you'll have a better guest experience and a better time at the park, because crowding everywhere else will be lower thanks to the existence of a show in the park. But let me tell you, maybe you should consider going to see shows, because honestly, they do provide a significant benefit to the average guest. I mean, for one, they take you off your feet. Theme parks are notorious for causing you to walk a lot and just be standing for significant periods of time. Combine this with the Florida heat and giving guests an opportunity to sit down, relax, enjoy some air conditioning, all while getting to experience an attraction, and without having to take a break and sit on a park bench effectively doing nothing. And listen, for a sweat like me, who refuses to take a break when they're at a theme park and says, I gotta make the most of my time, I gotta do stuff every single second, I can't just sit down and do nothing. A theme park show is the perfect way to force me to relax. So if you're like me, I highly recommend you experience a show on any sort of theme park day if they do have one in the park. Islands of Adventure, of course, doesn't at the moment. But the reason why I say you should is because it doesn't just allow you to relax, it also adds variety to your park day. You're not just going from ride to ride to ride to ride. Shows offer up a different type of experience that rides simply can't emulate. Part of that is the fact that you're actually looking at real live actors performing stunts or singing songs or doing dance numbers. And when you're talking about a park like Islands of Adventure that does have a relatively high percentage of screen-based rides, seeing somebody actually in person doing something is going to help immerse you more into the world and the story that theme park land is trying to tell. So yeah, as you can see, simply by having a show in your theme park, the guest experience is improved for everybody across the board, regardless if they go to see the show or not. And for as much as I love Islands of Adventure, if they were to add a quality sit-down show, or in fact, a couple, this park would be on a whole nother level. It would completely change the game and completely change the way that your day at Islands of Adventure typically goes. I mean, look at Universal Studios Florida. Despite the crusade on shows that Universal conducted, this show lineup is still phenomenal and quite frankly stacked top to bottom, which kind of shows you like how much of an over-reliance they had on shows for a while. But the fact that the park right next door, owned by the same company, has this sort of show lineup and Islands of Adventure has nothing is really bizarre, and I think it's finally time that issue gets addressed. And listen, you got the Toon Lagoon Theater sitting vacant, you got the Lost Continent waiting to be replaced. You have the opportunity to add a show in this park without getting rid of anything that's currently in operation. And you know, there is a show that you have that's like, you know, world renowned, world famous, and is like really well loved. You have at every single other park in your chain except for Universal Orlando, and that's Waterworld. So, you know, just saying, maybe you could potentially bring that here. Just an idea. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Islands of Adventure does need a show? Do you think that is the major problem it's facing? Or is it facing other problems that I didn't address? Let me know in the comments. Love to hear what you have to say. And I'll see you all next time. Peace.